You will receive a copy of the slides that we're covering in class today, as well as links to any websites I may mention throughout today's course. So don't feel like you need to have a pen and paper on hand jotting down the different websites. We will be able to provide you with a resource list in that follow-up email. So let's get started. There are bound to be questions that pop up throughout today's class. We have about 2 hours of time slated for today's baby sleep class. And I'm here to support you all and answer any questions that you have along the way. How the Q&A sessions will work, we have 6 topics to cover, so that's a lot of content. We will first open up the first live chat box about halfway through class for you to ask any questions that you have on the first half of class's topics. And then we'll open up the live chat box again at the very end of class for you all to ask any last minute lingering questions. And in order to keep class flowing, I'm unfortunately unable to answer questions on random topics not covered in today's sleep course, but I'm more than happy to chat with you about and answer questions that you have about the content from today's class, which is our baby sleep class. And so here at the Baby Academy, we're all inclusive and we're here to support you all. So whenever you hear me use the term partner, that is meant to include whoever, whatever that means to you personally. We will give you guys time for a break. I know I mentioned that this class is about 2 hours in length. And so you will take your break about midway through class. So after that first live chat box is open and closed, that's when I will give you an opportunity to stretch your legs, grab a snack, whatever you may need. And it is recommended that you keep your web browser open during those breaks because we'll come right back to the same screen after your break has finished. So try to remember not to close out the web browser on your breaks. Just keep everything up and running as usual. Okay, so before we dive into today's class content, I did want to tell you a little bit more about myself and my plans for supporting each and every one of you today. So like I mentioned before, my name is Lindsay, and I'm actually a pediatric nurse. My specialty is in pediatric emergency medicine. So I have many, many years of hands-on clinical experience caring for pediatric emergency room patients. So that includes children who are presenting to the ER for acute illnesses, acute injuries, as well as children who have chronic medical conditions and are having exacerbations of those chronic medical conditions. So that is kind of where the bulk of my pediatric nursing experience lies. On top of that, I also have experience as a labor and delivery nurse. So I've helped care for newborns and new parents, new mothers through the antepartum, intrapartum, and postpartum phases of life. And so I've had lots and lots of different experiences in the field of nursing, specifically in pediatrics, as well as maternal health and child health. So that's a little bit about me and my background and how I plan to share my knowledge and expertise with each and every one of you. So enough about me. I want to hear about you guys. So we'll open up that live chat box now. Feel free to type in your name, where you're tuning in from this morning. What I like about these classes is it's like we're all sitting in one big classroom, even though we're spread across the nation, which is pretty neat. When your baby, or if you're having multiples, when your babies are due, or maybe some of you have kiddos at home. So I'm interested to see how old your children are if you do have children at home. So I'll give you guys an opportunity to type in your responses and I will give some shout outs. All right, awesome. This is wonderful. Okay. Let me scroll up here. Okay, so we have Megan from New York. She is due in October. Congratulations, Megan. Very exciting. All right, we also have Kelly and Johnny. They're also from New York, and they are expecting a baby girl on September 14th. That's right around the corner. So exciting. Malika, she's tuning in today from Georgia. Welcome, Malika. We have Lauren. She's tuning in today from Florida. She's due September 2nd. Congratulations, Lauren. Lisa, we have Lisa from New Jersey who has a little 12-week-old at home, so that's super exciting. So what's cool about this class is we talk about, different children across the lifespan, different sleep expectations we have for them. So you're in the perfect spot, Lisa. We have Emily from Illinois. She's due September 24th with her first baby. Welcome, Emily. Who else do we have here? We have Erin from Texas. She's due September 12th. Congratulations. Evelyn and Dan from Minnesota. Their first baby is due in early October of this year. Congratulations. All right, Paloma. She's tuning in from Virginia. Baby is due October 28th. Very exciting. October is probably one of my favorite months. So that's a really fun time to have a birthday. And then Chanera from New York, and she has an 11-week-old daughter. So very exciting. Awesome. So nice to virtually meet all of you guys. And I'm really excited to kind of share these slides with you, and hopefully you guys gain a lot of knowledge from today's baby sleep course. Dive back in here. Okay, perfect. And so before we dive into today's class content, firstly, I did want to extend a huge thank you to our partner, Walgreens. So here at the Baby Academy, we're super passionate about making sure that pregnancy information, parental education is open and accessible to all. And this is only made possible with the support from our partner, Walgreens. And what's nice about Walgreens is they save you time and hassle. They get what you need fast. You're able to order those last minute essentials for a 1-hour delivery, or you can even order curbside with a 30-minute pickup window, which is super nice and convenient, especially if you're on the run with newborns and little ones. And as a special thank you for attending today's course, Baby Academy class participants will receive an extra 10% off 3 purchases of $30 or more if you use the code BABYAC, so that's all caps, BABYAC, when you place an order online via the Walgreens app, or if you go to walgreens.com. And while you're at it, feel free to join the My Walgreens loyalty program, where you'll receive 5% off their wide assortment of Walgreens brand products. So once again, thank you to our partner, Walgreens. All right, perfect. So as promised, we have 6 topics to cover today. So for you visual learners in the room, here's a little overview of today's game plan. We'll start today's lecture talking about understanding exactly how sleep impacts your baby's development, because it does actually impact different phases of their development, which is really interesting and important. Then we'll talk about, depending how old your child is, how much sleep does your baby actually need. Then we'll discuss different signs and symptoms that your child may exhibit to show that he or she is getting sleepy. Then we will discuss daytime napping versus nighttime routines, kind of how to streamline daytime naps and getting your baby to sleep in the nighttime. The 5th topic is, I feel like, every parent's favorite topic, which is where we discuss common sleep challenges and different tips and tricks we give you to overcome these common sleep challenges. And then we round out today's class talking about the 4-month sleep regression. So here's a little overview of what we have in store today. Okay, so firstly, really important to understand how exactly sleep impacts your child's development. So sleep actually influences your baby in many different ways. And I don't know if any of you guys at home, you've probably experienced a time or two, maybe more, where you've gotten a really poor night's sleep and it affects you the next day, maybe even the days afterwards. And so the same can be said for babies, and it's especially important to promote healthy sleep habits in babies because they're constantly undergoing these different growth and developmental changes each and every day. They do so much learning and growing, especially within that first year of life. So sleep can actually influence your baby's immune system. It can influence the strength of your baby's immune system. So those who get chronic poor night's sleep, they tend to have weaker immune systems. So, sleep is very, very important for the quality and the strength of your immune system. And I don't know if any of you guys at home, as I mentioned, if you have a poor night's sleep, I know for me, if I have a poor night's sleep, I tend to get sicker faster, I catch colds easier, things like that. And so, the strength of your baby's immune system is certainly influenced by the quality of their sleep. Your baby's ability to process emotions is also influenced by sleep. And so, if you think about it in the way that sleep is your time to rest and reset, and if you have inadequate sleep and inadequate sleep habits, you are more irritable, you're not able to focus as well, you're not able to regulate or process your emotions as well. So, certainly, the ability to process emotions is directly impacted by sleep. Additionally, your baby's ability to learn skills is impacted by their sleep. And so, especially in that first year of life, little ones are learning important skills that they'll need to build upon to kind of reach that next developmental milestone or that next developmental stage. So, they need to learn how to sit up before they're able to start crawling or start being able to use, spoons and utensils. They're going to need to learn how to pull themselves to stand before they can learn to walk. So your baby's ability to learn these very important skills is certainly influenced by the quality of their sleep. Your baby's behavior, and this kind of plays into baby's ability to process emotions, but those who get poor sleep have more irritable moods or more irritable behaviors. And that kind of plays into the fact of they're having difficulty processing those emotions, then in which turns into their behaviors being impacted negatively. Actually, and this is interesting too, your baby's ability to grow physically is impacted by their sleep. So, for those of you who have children at home, and a lot of you are going to be having babies soon, whenever you take your child into the pediatrician's office, we are always, always, always monitoring their length. So that's how tall they are, their weight, how much they weigh, and then up until they're about 2 years old, we measure their head circumference because we want to make sure that their heads are growing proportionately to their body, that their skulls are able to house that forever growing brain. And so your baby's ability to grow, like their growth parameters, are impacted by their sleep quality. And how your baby stores memory is impacted by sleep. And this, I feel like, all ties into your behavior, your ability to process emotions, kind of pulls all of these things together because, like we mentioned, your baby's ability to learn new skills, they must learn a skill, store how to complete that skill, in their brains, in order for them to build upon it. So, your baby's ability to store memories is very, very important and very essential and is influenced by their sleep quality. And so, lots of research has actually been done in the field of sleep medicine. And it's been found that poor sleep in infancy has actually been linked to many negative patient health outcomes. And so these negative health outcomes we want to avoid, by the promotion of good quality sleep habits, include poor cognitive performance, poor social skill development, and obesity. So, kind of these three negative health outcomes are directly linked to poor sleep and poor sleep habits. So, that's why we want to promote those healthy sleep habits early in infancy so that we can avoid these kind of negative health outcomes here. So, you all are taking the perfect first step in taking today's baby sleep class. So, congratulations there. And now that we've discussed, the importance of quality sleep on your child's growth and development and behavior and ability to store memories, now's a good opportunity to discuss exactly how much sleep does your baby need. And the answer lies in it depends on how old your baby is. So we are providing you all with this sleep expectation chart. And what's really nice is that it's broken down kind of month by month. So you can kind of have an overview and a quick expectation chart of, my baby is 2 months old. So I can expect maybe that they would lie within one of these boxes here. And so we'll walk through this. I did want to throw a disclaimer out that not every baby reads the textbook. So every baby is a little bit different. So if your child doesn't fall perfectly into one of these boxes, that's totally okay and fine. We just kind of provide this as a quick reference and a quick overview so that you can all be aware of different sleep expectations based on the age of your child. And so the first kind of row we'll talk about is how much sleep does baby need in a 24-hour time frame? And so as you see here, when babies are really young, like they're, less than 2 months of age or right at 2 months of age or under, they require a lot of sleep. So early in infancy, your child is really expected to eat, pee, poop, and eat, sleep, pee, and poop. Like that's kind of all that we really expect of them. And so even those small tasks can take a lot of time and effort out of them. And so they do require a lot of rest and a lot of sleep. And so that's why you see when they're 0 to about 2 months of age, they require anywhere from 14 to 18 hours of sleep. Then as baby ages and gets older, the amount of sleep that they need in a 24-hour time frame starts to dwindle down. So by the time they're 4 to 5 months, they will only require about 12 to 14 hours of sleep in a day, or I guess I should say in a 24-hour time frame. As far as length of naps goes, the 45 minutes to 90 minutes stays pretty steady up until they get to be about 4 to 5 months of age. And that's kind of interesting, right? Like they're taking these kind of like shorter types of naps. And then once they reach 4 to 5 months, then the length of their nap starts to increase. And in a couple of clicks, you'll see why that is. Okay, awake windows. So awake windows are exactly what they sound like. It's the period of time that your baby is awake and alert and looking at you and looking around the room and maybe looking at a toy that you're holding in front of them. And so we want to take advantage of these awake windows because as you can see, when they're really young, they're 0 to 1 month, 1 to 2 months, these awake windows are pretty short in duration. So during those awake windows, that's a great time to read them a book, to talk to them, to do some tummy time. So we definitely want to be aware of these awake windows and take advantage of them as much as possible. What's nice is that as baby ages, they start to have an increase in the duration of their awake window. So by the time they're 4 to 5 months old, their awake window is anywhere from 90 to 120 minutes. The number of daytime naps also varies based on the age of your child. So a 1 month old takes frequent naps, about 3 to 6. Same with the 1 to 2 months olds, like anywhere from 4 to 6 naps during the day. And then that number starts to dwindle down. So notice by the time your baby is about 4 to 5 months old, they're only taking about 3 to 4 daytime naps. But what's nice about these naps is that they're longer in duration. So even though your 4 or 5 month old is taking less naps during the day, those naps are longer in duration as compared to when they were younger. An approximate bedtime. And so note the word approximate. So every family is different, every living situation is different, but these are just some references that you can refer to of approximate bedtimes to keep in mind for the age of your child. So you see 9 p.m. tends to be pretty steady throughout, 1 month olds, 2 month olds, 3 month olds. And then you can consider pushing up the bedtime to about 6 to 8 p.m. once your baby hits like 3 to 5 months of age. Nighttime waking. So this is how many times your baby wakes up throughout the night for a diaper change, a bedtime, a bottle, a breastfeeding session. There's really no rhyme or reason. They're just kind of figuring it out when they're 0 to 1 month. They don't have that circadian rhythm established quite yet. And a little bit later in class, we'll talk about what the circadian rhythm is, but there's really no rhyme or reason when they're really young. They're in that 1 month age range. They are waking up frequently throughout the night. Then as baby gets older, their nighttime waking starts to decrease, which is nice for your sleeping purposes, your restfulness. So you can anticipate that a 4 to 5 month old maybe is only waking once or twice throughout the night. And the longest stretch of nighttime sleep that you can anticipate, for babies of different ages. So as we see here, they're waking up frequently. So they're probably waking up every 2 to 4 hours to feed, whether you're bottle feeding or you're breastfeeding, whatever it may be. And then as baby gets older, the stretch of nighttime sleep starts to increase. So if you're lucky with your 4 or 5 month old, maybe they'll give you a rock solid 8 hours of sleep throughout the night. And so what's very important to note, and as I said before, this is just an overview, it's a reference guide. If your child does not perfectly fit into one of these boxes, that's totally okay, and it's totally can be normal as well. So sleeping times can certainly vary from baby to baby, especially within this first 4 month age range, because they're really just trying to figure out life on the outside, right? They were just comfy, cozy in a dark environment for 9 months straight. And they're really just trying to figure it out, especially within this first 4 months of life. Okay, so now that we have a general overview of sleep expectations of your little one based on his or her age, now we can talk about different signs and symptoms that your child may exhibit to alert you that he or she is starting to get sleepy. So these following signs and symptoms are considered early sleep cues. So whenever you see these early sleep cues, that should alert you that, okay, maybe it is time for a nap, or maybe it's time for bedtime. And so these tend to be the first set of cues that baby will show you to show that he or she is getting sleepy. So the most obvious one that we all know, the universal sign of sleepiness, is yawning. Other early sleepy cues include rubbing of the eyes. So baby may bring their hand up and start rubbing their eyes. That tends to be an early sleepy cue. If they are appearing disinterested, so if you're reading to them or you're talking to them or you have a toy in front of them, and then all of a sudden they kind of just look away and they don't appear interested in whatever you're holding out in front of them anymore, that could also be an indicator that baby is starting to get sleepy. Also, baby may show some redness around the eyes. So the redness we're talking about is to the skin around the eyes, okay? We're not talking about like redness to the white part of the eye, which is called the sclera. That tends to be, if there's some type of irritant in the eye or an eye infection or something like that. So the early sleepy cue we're talking about is like redness around the skin of the eyes. That could also be an indicator that baby is getting sleepy. And if your child may have individual unique cues that are unique to them to alert you that they are getting sleepy. And so you'll get to know your little one, you'll get to know your baby, and you'll be able to identify those unique signals that they're showing you to alert you that they are getting sleepy. So the symptoms we just covered are those early sleepy cues, remember? The following cues are our late sleepy cues. So if your baby is showing these signs and symptoms, it could suggest that maybe we waited a little bit too long to put baby down for their nap, or we waited a little too long to put baby down for bed. And it's just, it happens. It is what it is. It's just a good note to keep in the back of your mind for next time that, okay, we'll put baby down for their nap a little bit sooner versus waiting until they show us these late sleepy cues. So one pretty obvious one is fussiness. So they're really irritable, they're crying, they're really fussy. The obvious kind of goes hand in hand with fussiness, but they're crying. If you notice that their eyes are drooping, it's letting us know that their eyelids are getting really heavy and they're having a hard time keeping their eyes open. And rubbing at the eyes, that's another kind of late sleepy cue as well. And so all of those are indicators of early sleep cues and later sleep cues. So you can kind of differentiate between the two. And like I said, you'll be able to determine those unique signals that your child will show you to alert you that they're getting sleepy. So now that we've identified, what signs and symptoms to look out for that are letting us know that baby is sleepy, and we've determined, okay, it's nap time or it's bedtime. Now we can talk about safe sleep. And you all probably have heard about safe sleep, but we're going to dive a little deeper into what exactly that is. So back in 1991, there was a health promotion campaign launched called the Back to Sleep campaign. And its goal was to reduce the risk of SIDS, which stands for Sudden Infant Death Syndrome. And so after the launch of this educational program, the number of SIDS deaths has actually fallen by 82%. So this educational campaign was a huge success, and that's why we still teach its core values here to this day, even though that was many, many years ago. So for safe sleep, you want to start with your ABCs. So baby should be alone on his or her back in a crib. Ideally, that crib is actually located in your room. So the American Academy of Pediatrics, also called AAP, so you'll hear me reference them as AAP, they are a board of pediatric experts, physicians, researchers, and they kind of, they are the experts in all things pediatric health. So the AAP recommends that baby is in a crib in your room for the first year of their life. Now, everyone's housing and living situation and family situation is different. So if your child is unable to stay in a crib in your room for the first year of life, ideally they would be in a crib in your room for the first 6 months of their life. And the thought behind that is if in case an emergency occurs, you're kind of like right there and can kind of get to them very quickly versus going into the nursery. But that's why we have things like baby monitors. Okay. Other things to keep in mind as far as safe sleep goes, you want to be cognizant of where in the room the crib is. So you don't want it to be, next to blinds where the blind cords are hanging down into the crib, because those blind cords look really attractive to baby. Baby will try to reach up and grab those blind cords and accidentally bring the blinds down on themselves, or they might get their arm wrapped around the blind cords, or even worse, get their neck wrapped around the blind cords. And so just be aware where you're placing the crib in the room and avoid allowing any of the cords from the blinds to hang down into the crib itself. Also, you want to use a one-piece sleeper for baby. So finding a one-piece sleeper that zips up or buttons up, whatever you prefer. But you're going to want to avoid any extra fluff and stuff in the crib. So that means no blankets, no pillows, no bumper pads, no baby dolls, no teddy bears, nothing extra in the crib. Really, it should be baby alone on their back in the crib, wearing an appropriate sized one-piece sleeper. You want to be aware of what type of sheets you're putting over the crib. So the crib sheets should be the appropriate size to fit the mattress, and they should fit tightly and snugly over that mattress. Avoid crib sheets that have tassels and sequins and like anything extra that could be fluffy and pose as a potential hazard to baby's airway. And you want to make sure that they fit snugly over top of the mattress because you don't want extra pieces of fabric kind of bunching up. Also, you want to be aware of the gaps of the cribs themselves. So, a way to test to see if the gaps between the crib slats are appropriate is by doing something called the can of Coke test. So, what that looks like is you grab a can of soda and you attempt to pass the can of soda through the gaps of the crib slats. If you're able to pass that can of Coke or can of soda through the crib slats, that alerts you that those crib slats are too far apart. They could pose as a hazard to your little one, and you should, not use that crib and find one that's of an appropriate size. And this is a really big one, especially, with my background in pediatric emergency medicine. Really should avoid falling asleep on the couch or really anywhere with baby. So, a lot of negative things can occur if you accidentally fall asleep with baby. So, I've seen, if parent or caregiver has fallen asleep with baby on the couch, baby accidentally rolls off their chest and suffers a head injury. I've also seen parents or caregivers accidentally roll on top of baby and kind of block off their airway. Or baby rolls into the couch cushions and gets their little face squished up against the couch cushions, which also causes them to have difficulty breathing. So, really, if you're laying with baby chest to chest and you're starting to feel sleepy, really what's best is that you pick baby up, bring them to a safe sleep space, alone on their back in a crib, and allow them to safely sleep that way. Okay, so now we'll talk about safe swaddling. And so for safe swaddling, what you're going to want to do is gather your equipment. So firstly, you're going to want to use a light, breathable blanket. So those of you who are delivering in a hospital setting or like a midwife center or something, this is a good example of like a light, breathable swaddle blanket. They're kind of stretchy. It's a really soft, kind of like breathable cotton material. So that's the type of blanket that you want to use. You want to make sure that you're wrapping baby not too tightly because you want to avoid hip damage. And so you can kind of like snugly wrap kind of their upper body. You still want them to have some type of motion, but you don't want to wrap up their hips so tightly and kind of like, you want to avoid like jacking their hips up like this because you want to avoid that hip damage. You're going to want to make sure baby's shoulders, head, and neck are free for a couple different reasons. You want them to be able to like have their airway free, right? You want them to be able to like comfortably breathe, but also that gives them an opportunity to stretch their muscles and work on their muscle development. And this is a big one too. Once your baby is able to start rolling, that's when you should no longer swaddle. Because the thought process is once baby's able to roll, they should be able to roll back the other way. And then that swaddle blanket serves as like a hazard to their airway. So once your baby proves themselves that they're able to roll, you can then just stop swaddling. Okay, so now we can do a quick demonstration on how to swaddle a baby. Stella's going to be my assistant. Let me move this over here. Okay. So we have our light breathable blanket here. Get this one here. And I have it laying lengthways, okay? So first I'm going to put baby Stella's head up at the top of the swaddle here. I'm ensuring that her head, neck, and shoulders are free from the swaddle. With my left hand, I'm grabbing that top corner of the swaddle, and I'm just draping it across her chest. You notice that the extra fabric at the bottom by her feet forms a point. So with my other hand, I'm going to grab that point and bring it up to that opposite shoulder. So it's Stella's left shoulder. Any extra fabric, I'm just like gently tucking underneath her shoulder. Then with my right hand, all the extra fabric on, it's her left side, I'm just going to drape back across her chest. Okay, now as you can see, now she's in a tight little, a snug little burrito. Her head, neck, and shoulders are free. And here she is in her little swaddle. And so what I will say is that it does take some practice. So it's okay if you need an extra hand to help you with the swaddling. That's totally fine because it does take some practice. Okay. And so some did you know things. So an important part of developing healthy sleep habits for your baby actually lies in teaching them how to fall asleep on their own. And so babies do find it soothing to be rocked or cuddled, especially within the first weeks of life. But from approximately 6 months, or I'm sorry, 6 weeks and over, it's actually best to put your baby to bed before they actually fall asleep. And how you're going to do that is by allowing the sleep cues to guide you. This way, they're going to be less anxious if they wake up during the night and you're not there. And then this means that they're most likely able to fall asleep without needing your help in the middle of the night. Okay. And so I apologize, you guys. I'm going to have us take our break just a little bit early. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause on this slide. Everyone take like a 3 minute break. Okay. So, I'll see you back at 10 after the hour. Be Hi again, everyone. Sorry I'm back. Um, Sorry we took that break a little bit early. I'll give you time for your official break after that first Q&A session. I'm pregnant myself, and so I'm like, I have to go to the bathroom. So I'm sure a lot of you guys um, are with me on that. I'm due in November, so I'm right there in the same boat with you. Okay. So taking a really quick break um, from our topic of baby sleep, some hot news off the press from here at the Baby Academy. We have this really cool course that we offer, and it's called the Baby First Aid class. And what's nice about it is that it's 100% for free. So, in this course, and this is one of the courses that I help teach too, we learn about baby emergency response. So, you learn baby CPR, which is great and a great skill to have. And it's important because effective CPR can actually double or triple survival rates after someone suffers cardiac arrest, which is like the fancy term for your heart stops beating. In addition, you also will learn about choking risk reduction in this baby first aid course. So, unfortunately, choking is a leading cause of injury and death in children under age 4. So, it's really important that you're able to acquire these skills to adequately and quickly respond to choking incidents. So, once again, in addition to baby CPR, a super important skill to have. And you will learn other must know skills during this baby first aid course. So, other parent skills that you'll cover in the first aid class include CPR and choking, like we mentioned. You also learn about burns, trauma, lacerations, how to prevent them, how to treat them, as well as skin issues and other common baby issues that may pop up along the way. And so, what's really cool is that peace of mind is really just one class away. And we will give you more details on how to grab your free place in our baby first aid class later today. Okay, so now our next topic, we will talk about daytime napping versus nighttime routines. And so, some important information in this, if you take away anything from today's class, this is like the number one takeaway I want you to have in mind is that setting a consistent routine is without a doubt the most important tactic you can have in your toolbox as a parent and as it relates to infant and child sleep habits. So, key point, big gold star, setting a consistent routine is the number one thing that you can do. So, as we mentioned before, babies need a lot of hugs and cuddles and swaying and soothing, being rocked to sleep when they're early in their infancy, like when they're less than 6 weeks of age. However, once they hit that 6 week mark and onwards, you're going to want to make sure that baby is getting lots and lots of daylight during the day. And you want to make sure that they're getting lots of stimulation during the day. They're playing with toys, you're reading to them, you're showing them the outdoors, just things like that during the day because you want to help establish their circadian rhythm. So, your circadian rhythm is your body's natural internal alarm clock that lets us know that daytime is for being awake and for brightfulness, and nighttime is for sleep and for darkness. And so, while it is true that babies do need several naps throughout the day, what is suggested is that you actually find a sleep and a nap schedule that suits you and your family's needs, but also ensures that your baby is still tired enough in order to get a good night's sleep at night. So, some tips and tricks for daytime routines include allowing baby to nap in a well lit room. So, from 6 weeks onwards, remember, you're going to want to make sure that baby is getting exposed to lots and lots of light during the day. This includes during their nap time. So, if your baby is napping during the day, make sure that the curtains are pulled open, the windows are open, lots of light is flooding into the room, because we're helping them establish that daytime is for brightfulness and for wakefulness. And during those daytime naps, you're going to keep everything running business as usual. So keep the TV on, keep the radio on, run the vacuum cleaner, do whatever you normally would throughout the day. And during a daytime nap, if baby has not waken up naturally after about 3.5 hours, that would be a good time to intervene, wake them up for a feeding. And this will also help to ensure that they're going to sleep for longer stretches during the nighttime. Okay, and so those were tips and tricks for daytime napping. Now we have some tips for nighttime routines. So before bed, make sure that you're feeding baby in the same chair or the same spot on the couch, just making sure that you're feeding them in the same spot each day or each night, I should say. And you're going to always want to put baby back to sleep in the same room each and every night. Next, you want to ensure that for nighttime, their room is as dark as possible. So you can have some dimmed lights, maybe throw a night light in the room as well. But honestly, the darker the room, the better. An optional piece to the nighttime routine is playing some calming music. Some people invest in like a white noise machine. Those are all great options to incorporate into your nighttime routine. You can also kind of start to round out the end of your nighttime routine by singing a song or reading baby a bedtime story. And then lastly, to signal the end of the nighttime routine process, you can give baby a kiss goodnight. And so, what the most important thing is that you do the same thing each and every single night. So, the tips and tricks we gave you in this nighttime routine slide here, those are just some suggestions, a reference guide, if you will. But you can figure out, what the best option is for you as far as a nighttime routine. And like we said, the key component is that you pick something and stick to it each and every night. The reason why this is so important is that baby will then, over time, learn to associate the steps of that bedtime routine with sleep. And it just acts as a smoother transition for them to get to bed, adequately. And so keep in mind, just pick a bedtime routine, stick with it, and do the same thing each and every night. Okay, so now we're at our Q&A session. So, if you guys have any questions so far on the content we've covered, I'll be able to answer your questions. And so we will open up the live chat box now for the next few minutes. I'll be able to answer any questions that you have. What's cool about these classes is that, there's so many people in the classroom with us. Questions tend to be repeated. And so, what I will do is I will read the questions out loud and answer them so that everyone in class can learn from the questions being asked. Something else, a disclaimer, if you will, I did want to note is that, the only questions I'm able to answer throughout these Q&A sessions include general sleep practice questions. So if you have any like individual sleep challenges that you're having at home, unfortunately, I'm not really able to give much help or advice on those just because those specific individual sleep challenges you may be having do require a medical background review, some specific family info, and really should be dealt with on like a one-to-one basis with you and your pediatrician or you and a sleep consultation. And so what I'll do is I'll refer you to your healthcare practitioner and they'll be able to set you up with like a one-to-one sleep consult where you'll be able to work through those individual challenges together. All right, perfect. So looks like a couple of you guys have some questions in the chat. So let me scroll up and start answering here. Give me a moment. All right, perfect. Give me 1 second. Okay, perfect. So I think I'm at the top here. Okay, so Francesca is asking, what age does a baby start turning on their own? Yeah, so every baby's a little bit different, but maybe around like the 2-ish month mark. Some might be sooner, some might be later, but you can kind of be on the lookout for maybe around 2 to 4 months, I would say. And so that's definitely something that your pediatrician will be monitoring. Jennifer is asking, if my baby is showing sleep cues 15 minutes into his awake window, should I let him sleep or try to keep him awake? Yeah, Jennifer, so that's a really good question. So I would kind of play around with that. And it also depends on how old your baby is. So some babies have like really short awake windows. So I would, if baby's showing that sleepy cue, maybe one day just try to play with a toy with him and see if he's interested, he or she. um oh, you said he. And uh and so if you're able to keep him awake, that's great. But if he's just not interested in a toy or whatever you're reading to him, then you can try putting him back to sleep. Malika is asking, when will I need to swaddle my baby? So I did want to say, not all babies like love being swaddled. A lot of babies do like to be swaddled because it reminds them of like how they were positioned in the womb. So you can, as soon as your baby is born, if you're delivering in a hospital or a midwife center or something like that, they'll kind of show you how to swaddle baby. So babies that early on, as soon as you're done delivering them, you can start swaddling them. But then you stop swaddling once they're able to start rolling on their own. Ashley Ann is asking, does it have to be a crib in your room or can it be a bassinet? Yeah, a bassinet is considered a safe sleep space, so bassinet is fine. Aaron asks, why are daytime versus nighttime routines established at 6 weeks and not sooner? Yeah, so kind of developmentally, once they reach that 6 month mark, that's when babies can kind of start learning to associate things, if you will. Anything earlier than that, there's really no rhyme or reason to it. They don't really have the mental capacity to be able to like determine, like, oh, it's light outside, I should be awake, or oh, it's dark in my room, I should go to sleep. So that's why we say 6 weeks and older, because developmentally 6 week olds kind of start the beginnings of that cognitive process. I hope that makes sense. Taylor says, congratulations on your pregnancy. Thank you. Thank you and congratulations to all of you guys too. Thank you. Katerina and Brian asking, is it safe to sleep with an overhead fan with baby, or is it better to use a tower fan? Yeah, so I would say as long as that overhead fan is secured appropriately, I think that's completely fine. Yeah, Jerusa asking how to avoid flat head if a head pillow is not recommended. Yeah, so that's a great question. So remember, our core pillars of back to sleep alone on their back in the crib, meaning no pillows, no blankets, no quilts, no teddy bears, all that stuff. So how you avoid flat head is whenever baby is in their awake window, you're going to do as much tummy time as they can tolerate, even if it's just a couple of minutes spread throughout the day. And so that helps get the pressure off the back of their head and helps them to avoid that flat head. And also early on, kind of a variation of doing tummy time is if, you're lying awake on the couch and baby's laying on top of you and their chest is on your chest, that counts as tummy time. So that's going to help get the pressure off the back of their head and help, prevent that flat head. Ashley asks for the sleep sack. How do you know what tog to get? How do you ensure baby isn't too hot or too cold? Yeah, so we actually talk extensively about tog, which is basically how you should dress your baby in different environments and like depending how hot or cold it is outside. We actually cover that in our free baby care class. So I'll refer you to our free baby care class for like the specifics on that. And I'm pretty sure they have a chart that you'll be able to access after attending that course. But a good general rule of thumb is that your baby should be wearing one more layer than you're wearing. So that's kind of a good general rule of thumb. So if you yourself, you're wearing like a t-shirt, pants, and a jacket, baby should have one extra layer. So maybe they should be in a onesie with a t-shirt and pants and something over top of it. Does that make sense? So baby should have one extra layer than you. Aylin says, I still swaddle my 4-month-old baby. Otherwise, she constantly moves her arms and wakes herself up. Do you have any suggestions on this matter? Yeah, so Aylin, I think maybe a little bit of a safer option sorry, my cursor's being funny. Okay. Maybe a safe would be like a sleep sack instead of like an actual swaddle. That way, because the thought process is with the swaddle, it could become undone. They could roll out of it, and then they could like turn their head and accidentally get it smushed up against the swaddle and block off their airway. So maybe see if there's like a one-piece sleeper. I know they have ones that you can kind of like put baby's arms and legs in it and zip it up that way. So that might be a little bit of a better option. Mallory asks is asking, you mentioned having a crib in the bedroom with parents. Does a bassinet work as well for the first 6 months? Yep, bassinet works just fine. Julia asks, is it safe to allow baby to sleep in stroller when taking them for a walk? Yeah, so this one is a toughie because technically speaking, like a stroller isn't really it's not alone on their back in a crib. But the thing with the stroller, you're right there. You have your eyes on them constantly. So I think if they do fall asleep in the stroller and you're at the mall or you're out running errands, it's not possible to like get them to a crib at that moment in time. So really just constantly monitoring them for any signs of respiratory distress or like a change in the color of their face, if it turns really red or blue or purple, things like that, just monitoring them. Aaron asks, sorry, my cursor's doing funny things. Aaron asks, during a wake window, should feeding or diaper change come first? So really, it's up to you. I know, and it depends how long they've been in that dirty diaper, right? Like if they've been in that dirty diaper for a while, let's say they just took a nice long nap, then I would do the diaper change first, but really it depends. And honestly, some babies will like pee their diaper or poop in their diaper right after a feeding. So just kind of play around with it and see what works best for you guys. Nikhil asks, when can I swaddle the baby at night or in daytime only? So you can honestly, before baby's able to roll over, you can swaddle them both in the nighttime and in the daytime. Both is fine. Ashley asks, is it okay for baby to sleep in a DockATot for daytime naps? So a DockATot is like kind of like this big pillow type of thing. So technically that's not a safe sleep space. So if you have your baby in a DockATot and they fall asleep there, what I would recommend you do is that you scoop them out and put them into a safe sleep zone alone on their back in the crib. If they are drifting off to sleep there, kind of just pick them up and move them to the crib or the bassinet. Hannah asks, thoughts on swaddles that allow a little more movement, like Love to Dream or Swaddleini instead of a regular blanket. So I am going to be honest, I am not familiar with I'm going to have to look that up after today's class. I'm not familiar with the Love to Dream or Swaddleini, but I think that's completely, as long as it doesn't have like the types of swaddles I don't recommend are like the weighted ones. Have you ever seen those advertised? So the thought is like they're weighted, so it's supposed to like give baby comfort, but I don't think those are very safe, and I feel like it limits their motion and their movement, and you want your baby to like be working on their head and neck muscles and arm muscles and stuff. So those are really like the only types of swaddles I don't recommend. So as long as the Love to Dream or the Swaddleini are not weighted swaddles, then I think they're fine to use. Okay. Okay, Lucy's asking, my baby fights naps. Should I rock him until he falls asleep during the day? So, great question, Lucy. And we're actually going to cover common sleep challenges in the second half of class. So, I'll have you hold on to that question. Casey asks, can you put a flat bassinet with a tight sheet inside of the crib? Can you put a flat bassinet with a tight sheet inside the crib? So if you're referencing like putting a bassinet in the crib and your baby's not yet like rolling over, like is it like a handheld bassinet and you're like putting resting it in the crib? I think that would be fine. Just like a bassinet or a crib, those both count as safe sleep zones. And like you said, it's important that the mattress or the crib sheets fit snugly over top of the mattress itself. So just as long as you hit those markers, that should be fine. Teresa asking if breastfeeding is on demand for the first few months, how to balance that with sleep. Yeah, so feeding can be tough because, you want your baby to feed and grow and gain weight and things like that. So yeah, it is definitely tough. Unfortunately, we don't kind of dive into breastfeeding and feeding in today's course. So I'm going to refer you either to your local lactation consultant or your pediatrician where they'll kind of be able to like walk you through how often babies should be feeding because it really depends on your child's past medical history and kind of what their growth chart looks like. Rachel asks, can you use a swaddle me type of swaddle that velcros instead of a blanket? Yep, that's totally fine. Jasmine asks, my baby is almost 2 months old. He always has difficulty falling asleep at some period of time every day. Examples are in the late afternoon, after we rocked him and he fell asleep. After we put him in bed, within 5 minutes, he wakes up. Yeah. So great question, Jasmine. We're going to cover common sleep challenges in part 2 of class today. Megan asks regarding sleep sacks. I've been seeing a lot about weighted ones. Are those safe for baby? So, like I said, Megan, I would avoid the weighted sleep sacks. Ganga Deep asks, my 2-month-old baby always sleeps on her back, but she tilts her face or neck to the right side. She's comfortable to sleep like this, but is this safe for babies? So, it's the true definition of safe sleep is putting them on their back. So what I would recommend you do is when you put baby in the crib, you put baby on their back in the crib. Now, if your baby's able to roll over, okay, they've hit that developmental milestone, they're able to roll over, and your baby rolls over onto their belly, you can leave them there. But always, 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 when you are putting baby into the crib, you are putting baby on their back. If they roll over to their belly, it's not necessary. If they do that on their own, it's not necessary to like keep popping in and putting them on their back. But you yourself, the first time you put them in the crib, you should put them on their back. So asking how to put the baby to sleep if it's already crying and fussy. Yeah. So we'll talk about different sleep challenges in the second half of class. Jennifer asks, my baby falls asleep while in the stroller. When I take them outside during the awake window, is that okay? Yeah. So as long as you're monitoring baby while they're in the stroller, I think that's fine. Catherine asks, when baby is only 5 days old, is it okay to be having her in the bassinet in the living room? My husband and I take turns watching her right now in the living room. Eventually, we want to move her to the bedroom. Can you switch from bassinet in the living room to bassinet in their room? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. And especially a 5-day-old, which congratulations, Catherine, and your husband, congratulations. Yeah, 5 days old, they kind of sleep wherever. So I think that's totally fine. Whatever works best for you guys. Yeah, bassinet in the living room or bassinet in the bedroom is fine. Lisa asks, is it too late to start a routine? So, not necessarily. The earliest you can start a routine is at 6 weeks. But the more you do the routine, remember, you keep it consistent, the more they're able to recognize a pattern and then be able to get themselves to sleep. Lexi asking if a baby is exhibiting sleepy cues, will they nap on their own if they're in the bassinet? You mentioned having to put baby down for a nap. Can you elaborate on how to do this? Yeah, so what you're going to do is, and we'll cover kind of this a little bit more in detail in the second part of class, but once you identify that your baby is exhibiting those sleepy cues, that would be a good time to put them down into the crib or bassinet because you're identifying those early sleepy cues. They're letting you know that they're starting to get sleepy. So that's a good time to put them down into the crib or bassinet. Um, and like I said, we'll dive a little deeper into that. I'm going to have you hold on to that question because we do get to it in the second half of class. Jen asks, how or would a baby have a harder time falling asleep for the bedtime routine if they are not sufficiently full? Yes, that's a good question, Jen. And I would say yes, because if their belly is not completely full and they're not completely satisfied, then certainly they are going to wake up sooner because they're going to be hungrier sooner. Christina asks, are contact naps safe? I hear about this a lot, but I'm not familiar. Yeah, so a contact nap is like baby falls asleep on you, like because they're directly touching you. They're contact to contact. So the Back to Sleep campaign states that the safest place to sleep is baby alone on their back in the crib. The thing with contact naps, as long as you're awake and alert too, right? Like you're not also dozing off, you're right there and you can visualize baby, make sure that they're breathing, that their color looks okay. So, certainly, contact naps, especially when babies are really young, like especially within that first 6 weeks of life, they can and they do a lot of contact naps. So as long as you're awake and alert and you're looking at baby and assessing their color and how they're breathing, a lot of babies do take contact naps, but the AAP answer is the safest place for them to sleep is alone on their back in the crib. All right. Awesome. You guys asked some really awesome questions. And so you have earned yourself an official break, more than just a 2 or 3 minute one I gave you before. So while you're on your break, feel free to share a story on your Instagram of you educating yourself here this morning and tag us at the Baby Academy US, as well as our partner Walgreens. So that's at Walgreens. And you will be entered in a chance to win a $25 Walgreens digital gift card. So with that, how about we take, um, let's do, I guess, like a 6 minute break. So come back at quarter till the hour. Quarter till the hour, I'll see you back here. It's about 6 minutes. Okay. So enjoy your break, everyone. Grab a cup of water or glass of tea or iced tea, whatever you guys like to drink. I'll see you back at quarter till. Thank you. Hi again, everyone. Welcome back from your break. Hopefully, you were able to stretch your legs a bit and get a snack. And then we're going to dive into our second half of class, which I know a lot of you guys in the chat had some specific kind of questions about sleep challenges. And so we'll get to those questions now and hopefully be able to answer them for you. So, our next topic, common sleep challenges and how you can overcome them. So, one of the most common sleep challenges that kiddos undergo is the daytime and nighttime confusion. So, they are not aware that it's daytime and it's light outside and they should be awake. And they're also not aware that nighttime is for restfulness and for sleep. And so, another term for this is called reverse cycling. And so, why exactly is this reverse cycling happening? So, whenever babies are in the womb, they're used to sleeping in the same environment all the time. So, they are used to their environment being dark and noisy. They are in mom's uterus, right? So, in the womb, they're used to just sleeping in that dark and noisy environment all the time. It doesn't really matter the time of day or night because their environment is always dark. They do not have access to daylight. And the environment is always noisy due to the swishing sound of blood flow to and from the placenta. So their environment always stays the same. It's always, always, always dark and noisy. Since their environment stays the same, they can sleep whenever they would like. So it doesn't matter if it's 2 p.m. or 2 a.m., their environment remains consistent so they can nap and sleep anytime they'd like, day or night. After baby is born, it will take some time for them to get used to the daytime being for brightfulness and the nighttime being for darkness and for sleep. And so this is the reason why it does take a decent amount of time for baby to kind of figure out that circadian rhythm, to establish that circadian rhythm, and for them to determine that, hey, I should be awake during the night or during the daytime when it's bright outside, and I should be sleeping during the nighttime whenever it's dark. So, ways that you can kind of help counteract this daytime slash nighttime confusion. One of the major things is exposing baby to as much daylight as possible during the day. So, when they're taking those daytime naps, whether it be in their crib or bassinet in the living room, just make sure that lots of lights are on, the curtains are pulled, um, or they're pulled open, the windows are open, and they're getting lots and lots of exposure to that natural sunlight. And whenever it is bedtime and in the night, you're going to make sure that their environment is very, very dark. So, some blackout curtains, just limit the number of night lights you have in the room, just making sure that environment in the nighttime is very dark. And those daytime naps, remember, we're going to limit them to 3.5 hours. If baby has not naturally woken up after a 3.5 hour daytime nap, we're going to go in and intervene and wake them up for a feeding or a diaper change. And did you notice that none of these tips are anything new because we've already established that awesome bedtime routine, and that routine has actually helped us kind of work through this daytime slash nighttime confusion in the first place. Okay, so some early morning wake ups. So, why do these early morning wake ups occur? As we've said, your baby's circadian rhythm is not quite fully developed just yet, so any time can be wake up time for them. So, things that we can do to help counteract these early morning wake ups include assessing baby's needs. So, if baby wakes up in the early morning, you can see if they're hungry, try to offer them a breastfeeding session, try to offer them a bottle, and then see if you can then settle them back to sleep. Also, just some snuggles that could be helpful for those early morning wake ups. And even doing some skin to skin is really helpful too. So, undressing baby, getting baby skin to skin with you. That's um, really helpful in the promotion of like different hormones kind of surging through oxytocin, that feel good hormone. That's another great way to kind of help balance these early morning wake ups. So then you can ensure that baby's belly is nice and full, making them more likely to fall back asleep. And then those snuggles and skin to skin could also soothe them back to sleep as well. Babies who take short and unpredictable naps, so this is a really common challenge that children and parents undergo. Why are these short and unpredictable naps occurring? So, babies do nap often and wake frequently because they have those teeny tiny bellies that need regular feeds. But especially within the first few months of life, these periods, these like wake cycles and napping cycles kind of are irregular and unpredictable. And it's all due to their growing bellies and the need for those bellies to be refilled frequently. So, things that you can do to help with these short and unpredictable naps: if your baby is not showing you signs of sleepy cues, so they're not rubbing their eyes, they're not yawning, they're not appearing disinterested, instead, what you're going to do is you're going to try to encourage those naps every 90 minutes if you're not recognizing those sleepy cues. So, how you encourage a nap is just kind of snuggling with them, bring them over to the crib or bassinet, and seeing if you can get them to fall asleep kind of on their own. Other types of equipment like slings, swaddles, and even snuggles with you can help to promote these naps or even extend the length of these naps. And in turn, these different pieces of equipment may teach baby to nap for longer periods of time. What I will say about like the slings, as well as you know, still at the end of the day, the safest sleep zone is alone on their back in the crib. So while these things could like help settle baby to sleep, you really should still be placing them alone on their back in the crib as a safe sleep measure. And what's interesting is that actually overtired babies tend to take shorter naps, which you would think the opposite, right? If you have a baby who's overtired and is due for a nap and is just fighting the nap, you would think that they would just drift right off to sleep with no problem. But actually, once a baby reaches a period of overtiredness, they tend to take shorter, less quality naps. So that's why it's important to try to identify those early sleep cues that we covered earlier in class, um, and get them into the crib or bassinet when they're exhibiting those early sleep cues so that we can avoid the period of overtiredness. All right, so frequent nighttime wakings, babies waking up often throughout the night. Why is this happening? So it is true that babies can wake up anywhere from 3 to 5 times during the night. Their tummies are small. They're making lots and lots of wet and poopy diapers, and their small tummies need to be refilled frequently. So we always need to make sure that that tank is full and they're nice and satiated. So what can you do to help with these frequent nighttime wakings? If your baby wakes up crying in the middle of the night, the most important thing is that you assess any necessary needs that they have. So, baby may be hungry. They may be uncomfortable, like maybe they're wearing a onesie or something that has a tag or something that's poking into them, or the onesie is just too small. So, they may be uncomfortable, or they're uncomfortable from a dirty diaper. So, maybe they need a diaper change. So in these cases, if baby appears to be hungry, they're showing you all the hunger cues. They have the rooting reflex, which is where they're kind of like turning side to side and they're looking for a nipple, whether it's the nipple of a bottle or the nipple of a breast, because they're hungry, or they're sucking on their hands and fingers. They're giving you those hunger cues. If they appear fussy and uncomfortable, or if you look at your diaper and notice it's wet or soiled, you're going to take care of that need in as dim lighting as possible. So utilize a night light. The darker the room, the better. And after you've quickly and quietly assessed that need, you're going to signal the end of your bedtime routine process by giving them a kiss goodnight and then putting them back to sleep. But if you feel that baby is not hungry, they're not uncomfortable, they have a clean, dry diaper, you could try soothing them in the following different ways. And so this should answer a few of you guys had some questions about kind of like soothing baby and some nighttime challenges you're having. So, one way to kind of help soothe baby back to sleep is babies really enjoy like rhythmic touch. So, if you think about it, when they were in your womb, when they were in your uterus, they would be rocked to sleep when you would walk around. That was kind of, they were quieter then, they were experiencing that rocking motion, and that got them calm and back to sleep essentially. So, rhythmic types of movements and patterns is really helpful in babies. So, you can gently and rhythmically pat them on their chest and belly. Babies really like to be shushed because it reminds them of the sound of the blood going to and from the placenta. So a combination of some shh with the rhythmic patting is helpful. Another thing you could do is, and keep in mind, babies, in their safe sleep zone, alone on their back in the crib, you can do some gentle rocking side to side, just like that rhythmic rocking as well. And then you can offer them, a few reassuring words. Just, Stella, I'm here. I love you. Good night. We're going to sleep. Um, and try those different interventions before just jumping straight to pulling baby out of the crib. And remember, we're talking about babies who are like 6 weeks and onwards. Um, the reason why we say don't just immediately jump to pulling them out of the crib if they don't have a need that needs to be met is because that could potentially create bad habits, because they learn every time they cry, they get pulled out the crib. So do your best to kind of keep them in the crib, offer them those reassuring words and those pats and the gentle rocking and the shushing, and that should help to calm them back down and get them back to sleep. Okay. And then the final topic of today's class, we'll talk about something called the 4 month sleep regression. And so maybe I should refer to it as the infamous 4 month sleep regression, if you guys have heard of it. And so the textbook definition of a sleep regression is whenever a baby, a child, a toddler experiences a temporary change in their sleeping pattern, and key emphasis on the word temporary, because these regressions just last anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. So they tend to not be like a forever thing. And so, common signs and symptoms of a sleep regression include babies who are fighting naps or bedtime. So, I know a lot of you in the chat were talking about your baby fights sleep, your baby fights naps. And so, what I would recommend is that you do the different techniques I just mentioned, the rhythmic rocking and the shushing, and try to get them back to sleep that way. But also, it could be due to your baby is undergoing a sleep regression, which is a totally normal finding. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a normal finding. Um, Other signs and symptoms of a sleep regression include difficulty falling asleep. So maybe you had this baby that the second that you ended your bedtime routine, you put them down, they fell right asleep, and now all of a sudden they're just tossing and turning and having a hard time falling asleep. Another symptom of a sleep regression, those long, maybe they're a long napper before, but now their naps are really short in duration, or maybe they're just skipping naps altogether. Those are also signs of a sleep regression. A baby who was previously kind of like sleeping for longer stretches of nighttime sleep, and all of a sudden they're coming back to these frequent nighttime wakings, they could be undergoing a sleep regression. And then just kind of fussiness and crying, especially during naps or bedtime sleep, they could also be undergoing a sleep regression. And so, what's important to keep in mind, sleep regressions have a negative connotation, But lots of research has actually been done, and the research actually suggests that these sleep regressions are due to the physical and developmental changes and processes that babies are experiencing, especially in the first few years of life when they're undergoing all those developmental changes and all those growth changes. And so, while many people feel that these sleep regressions are bad and terrible and a negative thing, I'm here to actually tell you that they are the opposite, that sleep regressions are letting us know that your child is growing and learning and developing just as they should be. So, while they can be tough to deal with, try to keep in the back of your mind that they are not a negative thing, that they're actually a good thing because they're showing you that baby is learning and growing and developing as they should. So, for sleep regressions, we're going to break this down like age by age, why you can expect potentially your child of certain ages to undergo sleep regressions. So, once again, this is just kind of like a reference chart. Your baby may not fit perfectly into these blocks, but this is a good kind of reference guide. So, at 4 months, what is happening in the developmental stage of a 4 month old? So, when baby is 4 months old, they're starting to develop more of an awareness. So, maybe they're starting to recognize faces. They should be kind of like turning to sounds and noises and voices. They should certainly be able to like track your face or track a toy if you hold a toy in front of them. And so, with this newfound sense of awareness, it could lead to a sleep regression because it could take them a bit longer to get into that deep sleep cycle. For an 8 month old, they're really working on their motor skills. So, around this age, maybe they start to develop the ability to have a pincer grasp, which is they're able to grab small objects like a Cheerio with just their two little fingers here. Maybe at this age, they're crawling. Maybe they're pulling themselves to stand. And also at this age, we look for something called object permanence, which is the understanding of the concept that objects still exist even when they're out of sight. So, a way that you can test, your baby around 8 to 9 months, if they understand the concept of object permanence, is like, let's say you're holding a ball in front of them, and then you pull the ball behind your back. A baby who can understand object permanence will try to look behind your back to see where you're hiding the toy. So, that's a huge cognitive change that they're undergoing, which certainly explains why an 8 or 9 month old may be undergoing a sleep regression. 12-month olds, we're really, really honing in on our motor skills now. Maybe at this stage, your baby is taking their first set of steps. And so this is a huge change, right? This is a huge physical change that they're undergoing. And so 12-month olds, some of them tend to drop their nap. Maybe they don't take a nap at all. Maybe they were like a 3 times a day napper. Now they're only napping once or twice. So just be on the lookout for those types of changes in a 12-month old. 18-month olds, they're working on their language and social development. So they're little chatty Cathys. Maybe they have a handful of words that they use. Maybe they're able to like string 2 word sentences together. That's a little bit developmentally complex for an 18-month old, but they're really, really trying to talk and babble and chat with you. Also, at this stage, they may have that stranger danger or separation anxiety where they prefer one caregiver over the other, or they're, not likely to just run into strangers' arms, which is obviously a good thing, right? We want them to be able to differentiate, people they know from strangers. And so all of these different changes they're undergoing certainly explains why they're having a sleep regression as well. And then the 24-month olds, the 2-year olds, I don't like the term terrible twos. I think all kids are great and they all have their own little fun little quirks. So 24-month-olds or 2-year-olds, they are full-on toddlers. They want to be independent. No is probably their favorite word. And so they're really learning to test these boundaries. They're combining their physical motor skills with their language skills and their cognitive skills. And so they just want independence and they want to test limits. And so certainly could have some changes to their sleep patterns because of this. Okay, and so in the chat, it does sound like a few of you guys may be having some struggles with potential sleep challenges regarding sleep regressions. And so things that you can do to work through that. The key, number one thing, remember guys, this is the biggest takeaway from today's class, is you guessed it, keep your baby's routine consistent. Same time every night, same process, same room, feed them in the same spot, all that good stuff. Keep that routine the same because it's going to play in the baby's head. This is the nighttime routine. This is how I stay consistent. You're also going to want to remain flexible, not only with baby, but with yourself as well. And just keep in mind that these sleep pattern changes are temporary. You're going to want to comfort baby, but trying to avoid the creation of bad habits. So I mentioned the one, right? Like baby has been fed, we have a clean diaper on, they're not uncomfortable. Instead of immediately pulling them out of the crib when they're crying, we're going to try our different rocking and soothing techniques. Another example of like a bad habit for like an older child would be, you may notice a child who's like 2 years or older, you put them down for bed and they have something called bedtime avoidance. So they come out of their room and they come into your room and they say, oh, I need a cup of water, or I need this, so things to do is to can keep that nighttime routine consistent. And the creation of a bad habit would be something like, oh, okay, yeah, let's go eat some Oreos. Let's go get a bedtime snack, right? Because then that teaches the child, all right, if I get myself out of bed and I go to mommy or daddy's room or whoever the partner is room, I'll get Oreos or I'll get a cookie or I'll get like a bedtime snack. And that could like snowball into obesity and all these different things. So try to avoid the creation of bad habits by remaining consistent with that bedtime routine and just assessing, are the needs being met? Are they hungry, uncomfortable? Do they need a diaper change or do they need to go to the bathroom? Whatever it may be. So comfort baby, but try to avoid creating bad habits. And during these temporary sleep changes, you may have to alter your own sleep schedule because you yourself may need to take some extra naps or, grab a snooze here and there to help manage the wakeful nights. And during this transitional period, baby's undergoing all of these like growth and developmental changes. Baby may actually need some extra feeds in order to sleep adequately. And that's totally okay. They're undergoing all of these changes. And so they may need that extra caloric intake. And always, always, always never be afraid to ask for help. So you can always reach out to us here at the Baby Academy. You could always ask a family member or a friend, a neighbor, whoever you kind of have in your corner to help support you. It's always, always, always okay to ask for help because it really does take a village to raise a little one. Okay, and so that kind of concludes the content from today's baby sleep course. And so a lot of times, parents have reached out to us and told us that their number one fear is actually not knowing what to do whenever their baby is presented with an emergency situation. So that's why we've created the 3-hour online course, the Baby First Aid course, like I mentioned earlier. And so in this course, you will learn, like we mentioned before, CPR, choking, burns, trauma, laceration care, as well as other common baby issues and skin issues. And so what's really nice about this class, it's really, we teach you a lot about important topics that you should be prepped with whenever you're caring for a little one, especially if ever presented with an emergency situation. And you can book this class for free. This is due to the 2010 Affordable Care Act that was introduced, and this act helped to provide widespread reimbursements for both private health insurance and Medicaid for pregnancy services and education for new parents. And so here at the Baby Academy, we want to ensure that all parents get our Ultimate Baby First Aid class, which is valued at $79, 100% for free. So the process for booking this class is simple. Firstly, you're going to book and pay for your Ultimate Baby First Aid class, which will result in a $79 checkout fee. But after that, we email you a copy of the receipt, which will include all the relevant details that you'll need to submit to your insurance provider. Once you send that receipt along with your policy details to your insurance provider, they will in turn reimburse you 100% for the course. And if for any reason you're having an issue with your insurance provider and their ability to reimburse you, all you have to do is contact us at the Baby Academy and we will be sure to reimburse you 100% ourselves. This class is very convenient because once again, it takes place on a Saturday, just like today's course did. And like we said, the usual price is $79, but you can get it free through the reimbursement process through your insurance provider. And as a special thank you for attending today's class, today's baby sleep class, if you book your Ultimate Baby First Aid course by midnight tonight, you will also receive access to our baby development class absolutely for free. So that's a good kind of class to blend into the baby sleep course as well as the baby first aid class, because in the baby development class, we tell you all about the different things that you should be on the lookout for developmental wise for your little one as they're kind of like learning and growing and going through the different developmental stages of life. So, as a reminder, you will receive access to our Ultimate Baby Development class for free if you hit the Book for Free Now button, and that'll pull you up into a separate browser. You won't lose me here in our final Q&A session. So hit this blue button up here at the top of the screen to book your Ultimate Baby First Aid class. And then, like I said, you will also gain access to our Ultimate Baby Development class for free. So keep in mind the special offer, kind of that two-for deal, does expire tonight, 1 minute before midnight. So the first aid class does take place on a Saturday from 9:30 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. As you see, August 17th and September 14th are very busy days. We only have 2 and 4 spots remaining, but there's lots of availability in September, October, and November. So make sure that you grab your spot now. Okay, and then without further ado, I'm happy to take any final questions that you guys have about today's class content. And we really, really, really look forward to seeing you at one of our other Ultimate Baby classes, whether it's the development class, the first aid class, the baby care class, whatever suits your needs the best. So I'll give you guys a moment to type in your questions. Oh, and then also another thank you to our partner, Walgreens. We couldn't do it without you. Okay, so let me scroll up here. Okay, so I'll start answering some of your questions, guys. Let me see here. Let me get my cursor back. Okay, so we have a question from Jennifer. So Jennifer asks, for the early morning wake ups or middle of the night wake ups, should I give a full bottle or offer a small amount first? So so that actually just depends on your baby. So what I would recommend is that you look for the cues that baby is giving to you. So if your baby, let's say you give a small volume of the bottle and your baby is still kind of like doing that rooting reflex, is looking around, is sucking on their fingers, is maybe kind of like making like sucking sounds, or is kind of, showing the different indicators that they're still hungry, then I would go ahead and give more of the bottle. Or if you give baby the bottle or I shouldn't just say the bottle, like if you're breastfeeding as well, and they kind of like detach from the bottle or the nipple, and then they kind of like are, that milk drunk type of thing where they're like really calm and relaxed, then that lets you know that their belly is pretty full and that they're pretty much good to go. So just let your baby's cues guide you. Aylin asks, we rock our 4-month-old baby to sleep in the swinging hammock. She doesn't sleep otherwise. She started waking up frequently at night. I think it's a sign of a sleep regression. When she wakes up at night, I nurse her back to sleep. How can we get rid of these sleep aids, especially rocking to sleep? Yeah, so that is a toughie. So what I'm going to recommend you do is try to identify those early sleepy cues, right? And try to put baby into the crib or bassinet before she's 100% fallen asleep. So something that you could do with that is, let's say you're rocking, right? Okay. So rocking baby to sleep. She starts showing those signs. She's yawning. She's showing those early sleepy cues. You're going to continue rocking her, and then you're going to keep rocking her, keep kind of like doing the rhythmic patting. And you're going to keep doing that while you're placing baby into the crib, doing that rhythmic patting or rocking. And you're just going to stay at the bedside for a few more moments with that gentle rocking and that gentle rhythmic pattern. And hopefully, baby is then able to kind of like fall, be 100% fallen asleep once you have her in the crib or bassinet. So that's what I would recommend doing and just kind of playing around with that. Doing your best those aids are great. Those like, different types of swings and things like that. Those are great to kind of like try to get baby to soothe to sleep. But my recommendation would be to try to put baby down in the crib or bassinet before she's 100% fallen asleep. Okay. Somali is saying, I missed the first part of class. Yeah, so you will be provided with a copy of the slides in an email after today's class. So we will be able to like at least get you access to the slides that we covered in the first part of class. Madison asks, is it recommended to put baby to sleep with a binky to soothe them? If so, until what age? Yeah, so binkies are safe to use for sleep. So, sorry, let me scroll again. Yeah, so you can use a pacifier or binky because a lot of babies find that sucking, that rhythmic sucking, is really calming and it's a soothing thing, and so it is safe for them to be put to bed with the binky. If they don't want it anymore, they just spit it out, and it's not necessarily considered like a hazard if it sits in the crib with them. And then really that's a good question about until what age. So it's really recommended that once they hit the 12-month mark, so once they hit their first birthday, that we should try to wean them from the binky, because at that point you can start having some like dental changes if you use the binky. So by like 12 months of age, we should really be thinking about weaning off the binky. Char's asking, hi, my daughter is 3 weeks old and slept fine in her own crib until a few days ago. She started refusing to sleep in her crib. Now she only wants to sleep on her chest. Anytime we put her down at night to sleep, she cries. We tried every technique to calm her, but nothing works outside of letting her in bed with us. We're pretty exhausted. Yeah, what should we do? So it does sound like you're having, kind of like an individual sleep challenge. So similar to whose question did I answer before? Aylin's. You can try those different things. Like I said, the rhythmic patting and the rocking, and just kind of before she 100% falls asleep, put baby into the crib or bassinet, whatever safe sleep environment you have for her. But other than that, if you're still struggling with that, then I'm going to refer you to your pediatrician because individual sleep challenges tend to need like a one-on-one sleep consult. So I would try the rocking. Once baby starts showing those early sleepy cues, then try to transition them into their own crib or bassinet. Hannah says, thank you so much. Thank you for attending, Hannah. So Molly is asking, can I get a recording? So unfortunately for these free kind of like baby courses, the recordings are not available, but you do get access to a copy of the slides. Divya asks, when the baby starts rolling, is it safe to use a bassinet? So it's safe to use a bassinet as long as your baby fits the growth parameters of the bassinet. So look at the reference manual of your bassinet and look at how much your baby weighs, because the bassinets have like a weight limit. So that's what I will refer you to. Evelyn and Dan are asking, if you have the bassinet in your room for the first 6 months, should you change and feed the baby in your room during the night or take them into the nursery? Okay, so for that first question, you have a bassinet in your room, should you change and feed during the night? You could do it either way. Honestly, for your sanity and your ease, you can just change and feed baby in your room. If you have baby in the room with you in the bassinet, I think it's completely fine to do the feeding and the diaper changes like in the room. Also, Evelyn and Dan are asking, we purchased the CPR first aid class last weekend, but didn't see a chance to sign up for the development class. Can we still attend? Yeah, so if you, let's see, didn't see a chance to sign for the development class, can we still attend? I'm going to I'm going to give you an email. These are our moderators and our kind of behind the scenes team here at the Baby Academy. So because I don't off the top of my head know the answer to that. So I'm going to send you their email and you can send them an email and ask that question. It's reception@yourbabyacademy.com. So Evelyn and Dan, I've put that email in the chat for you. Alana asks, we have a 14-week-old and doesn't eat at exactly the same time each day or night. How do we start implementing a consistent bedtime routine? Yes. So, let's see, doesn't eat exactly at the same time each. Yeah. As what I would say is, so firstly, the most important thing is that baby is eating and gaining weight, right? Like that's very important. That's what we look for. That's like the most important thing. So as long as your baby is kind of like doing those things, eating, gaining weight, then that's like firstly the most important thing. As far as setting a consistent bedtime routine, just kind of like take note of how often baby is feeding. Like, is it every about 2 to 4 hours? Is it, just look for maybe some type of like little pattern. And then you could also refer to in our slides that we'll send you, there's kind of like a sleep expectation chart, right? So we give approximate bedtimes. So depending on the age of your baby, you can look at what like an approximate bedtime is. And so that's what I would recommend doing. Looking at how old your baby is, look at what our recommended bedtime would be, kind of start the bedtime routine at that process. Or start the bedtime routine process like at that approximate bedtime. And then kind of as long as baby's like eating well and gaining weight, as they get older, they may need less feeds throughout the day and night because they have like those bigger bellies that they're able to last for longer periods of time. So if you're having any further issues with that, I will have you reach out to your pediatrician. Catherine asks, how many wake windows does a newborn have during the day? So I'm going to pull back, since we've had multiple questions kind of about sleep expectations, I'll pull back the chart here. So it depends on how old baby is. So awake windows, so it's not necessarily like a number, how many wake windows they have during the day. That can vary, but you can see that they last certain periods of time. So as baby ages, those awake windows increase in duration. So it really is dependent. Not every baby is the same. So it's kind of hard to say how many awake windows they'll have, but you can anticipate when they're having a wake window, how long you can anticipate the wake window to last. Jill and Michael asks, are sleep regressions guaranteed to happen or is it concerning if they don't? So, really great question. So, no, sleep regressions aren't guaranteed. So, some babies are just like sleepers. Like they just like take to it and they are, gaining weight and doing all the things and growing up normally and hitting all their developmental milestones and they're just like good sleepers. So, it's not necessary to have a sleep regression, and if your baby is not having a sleep regression, that's like not a bad thing either. Like you just got lucky and you have a baby who loves sleep and sleeps on cue and whatever. So it's sleep regressions are not necessary and it's not like concerning if your child never goes through one. It's just your baby. Ashraf asks, how long should naps be and what if they wake up? When do you start to re-put them to sleep? Yeah, so I'll have you reference the sleep expectation chart depending on the age of your baby. And really putting them back to sleep depends on the sleepy cues that baby is giving you. Like, are they rubbing at their ears? Are they yawning? Those are all those early sleepy cues like we covered in class as well. Jennifer asks, is giving a bath too stimulating before bedtime? So no, excuse me. Giving a bath is like a great thing to incorporate into the bedtime process. CU asks, any nightlight recommendations for feeding / diaper changing during the nighttime? So I don't have any specific like nightlight recommendations. But what I would look for, I would look for a nightlight that's not like a super harsh light. Like you don't want a light that is like fluorescent and like lights up the whole room. You want something that's like a little bit more calming and soothing and kind of like has a glow to it. Is like warm white, I think is what the term is. So I don't have like a specific brand or anything in mind, but just something that's not like overly stimulating. Maria asks, tips on balancing holidays and routines. Our child will be 2 months old at Thanksgiving and 3 months old at Christmas. Yes. Yes. Maria, I'll be 100% honest with you. Holidays and kind of like if your baby's not going to be like if you're going to be like staying at a friend's house or a family member's house, that's not your usual spot. It does a lot of times tend to like alter your baby's sleep habits a bit. I'll be honest with you because, setting that consistent routine, same feeding chair, same crib in the same room, like that's like the consistency we're looking for. So what you're going to do is you're going to do your best to mimic that bedtime routine as much as possible. Or if you're going to be somewhere for a decent amount of time, like just trying your best to mimic your usual bedtime routine in your new location. So around the same time, we're going to do the same feeding, going to find like a similar type of place, right? If you have like I don't know, a travel crib or travel bassinet or something. And just being flexible and aware that baby may take a little bit of extra time to kind of get back in the swing of things. So I would just say doing your best to mimic your usual bedtime routine as possible. Michelle asks, the breastfeeding class didn't really talk about this, but if my baby starts sleeping through the night, do I need to pump overnight or will my supply adjust? So while I'm not like a lactation expert consultant, what I do know is that for your supply, that stimulation from the pump will ensure that your supply stays up to date. So, but any other questions that you have on that, you can actually, like, if you remember the instructor of your course, you can email that reception at your baby academy as well, and they should be able to like shuttle that question over to whoever taught your class, or you could always bring up with your pediatrician as well. Kushbu is asking, 9-week-old wakes up after 30 minutes at night and only wants to be rocked back to sleep. Yeah, so your baby may be undergoing a sleep regression. And if they need to be rocked back to sleep, what I would recommend is that you put them down in their crib before they've 100% fallen asleep and see if you can kind of soothe them back to sleep in their crib or bassinet. Catherine asks, is it safe to use the Solly wrap for contact naps with a newborn 5-day old? Yeah, so I would say that's fine just because your eyes are directly on baby and you can like jump in if they have a change in their respiratory rate or their coloring looks off. So I think that's fine to use just as long as you're following the instruction manual on how to use that wrap. I think that's fine. Katarina and Brian asking, since babies should be going to bed around 8 or 9 p.m. and they should be in as dark a room as possible, should we be going to bed with them? Or is it okay to put them to bed and go out into the living room with a baby monitor? That's perfectly fine. Yeah. Just because baby's going to sleep around that time doesn't mean you need to. But yeah, utilizing the baby monitor is perfect for that. Getting Deep is asking, is this normal to poop five after 5 days for formula babies? Is this normal to poop five after 5 days for? I'm not sure what you're asking, Getting Deep, unfortunately. Five after 5 days for. I don't know if you're asking like if baby has not pooped after 5 days, after like receiving formula for 5 days. Um, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not clear on your question. Jasmine asks, do babies for sure have sleep regression or it depends? Yeah, so it depends. Not all babies undergo sleep regression. Lexi asks if baby refuses to nap in their bassinet, but they need to nap, what do you suggest? So I know like my niece, she hated her bassinet. So some babies just prefer napping in their crib, and I think that's fine. Like find something a safe place that they'll nap in. So if they're taking a daytime nap, maybe try the crib and just keep the windows, open and bright. Miguel is asking, what would be an ideal bedtime routine? I have friends who always do a bath, but I'm thinking of something you could always implement even when traveling, etc. Yeah, so that's great. So yeah, and it really just depends on, your living situation, your family. Yeah, so finding a bedtime routine that is like works best for you. So I'll pull up the slides and you guys will, like I said, have access to these slides, but a good thing to establish a bedtime routine: feeding in the same chair every night, putting baby to sleep in the same room, making sure that that room is as dark as possible. You can utilize like a white noise machine or something, sing a song, read a short story, and then give baby a kiss goodnight. So notice how this bedtime routine does not, include like a bath, which is fine. Let's see. Jenny is having some issues with reimbursement of classes. I'm sorry that you're undergoing that. Hmm, let me give you the email one more time. Yeah, I'll give you the email one more time. I'm not sure if you've tried emailing this email, reception@yourbabyacademy. Um, yeah, we'll definitely want to help with that. So sorry that you're going through that, Jenny. Ashraf asks, how can you get baby to sleep in crib? He just wants to be rocked to sleep. What age can you expect them to stay by themselves? Yeah. So the biggest thing is establishing that consistent bedtime routine and trying to put baby in their crib or bassinet before they're 100% fallen asleep. Ashley asks advice on what to do if baby feeds to sleep. So you could try to incorporate like a binky, because sometimes babies are just kind of like soothe sucking and they're not really like actually feeding. So that would be a good time to like introduce a pacifier. Roxanne asks, how do I check my bassinet for safety ratings online? It is old and handed down through generations. Yeah, so that's a good question, Roxanne. Let me see here. It's old, handed down through the generations. That's a really good question. Yeah, if it's old and kind of like and you can't find any reviews on it, um, hmm. I think the biggest thing is just making sure that it's stable, right? Like, making sure there are no screws loose, that if it has like slats in it for any reason, that the slats aren't spaced too far apart. And I think like even biggest thing to keep in mind is that you have a mattress that fits in there snugly with like appropriate size sheets over top. So I think that would be like, if that's kind of what you're using for your safe sleep space, I think those are like the big things to look out for. Casey asks, is using a sound machine with colorful light like the hatch useful at night, or should it be completely dark with no lights? So ideally, the room is as dark as possible, but I have heard of people using those sound machines like as their night light. So I would, if there's a way that you can make you can adjust how bright the light is, I would just put it to the lowest setting. I'm not sure if that's an option using the hatch, but if you're going to use a sound machine that has like a colorful light, then I would see if you can adjust the light to be as low as possible and maybe put the light slash white noise machine like in the furthest corner of the room so it's not like directly glowing on baby's face. That's so I think it's fine to use, but just like use as your night light and just make sure it's not like really up close and personal to baby's face. Smalley asking about missing the first part of the session. So, like I said, unfortunately, we don't provide the recordings for these free baby sleep classes, but you will receive a copy of the slides. Okay, awesome. Looks like those were all the questions today. Let me pull up that final slide for you guys to reference one final time. This one. So don't forget to hit the book for free now button for access to the first aid class and the baby development class. And with that, thank you for spending your Saturday with me and hope to see you in one of our other courses. All right, awesome. Take care, everyone, and be on the lookout for an email from us. Thanks so much.